Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and I've had some of my viewers ask that I tell about cameras I use on the airplanes, both my biplane here, my Great Lakes, and also the T310R. So let me tell you all about cameras. Well, first of all, you want one of these lightweight cameras, okay? Isn't this thing a beauty here? Yes. When I started doing video from an airplane about 40 years ago, a decathlon, I built a bracket to mount this heavy thing. You're going, why didn't you use a GoPro? Well, 40 years ago, GoPros didn't exist. So I mount this thing and had a viewfinder here, and it's got actually acoustic sensor here. I digress. But anyway, I built a structure in the decathlon to hold this. And then what I had to do is plug in this part right here to the VCR recorder, which was about this big. It was portable, it had this big battery, but the battery only lasted less than an hour, so I had another external battery that I plugged into, so this whole mess was in the back of the airplane. It was actually kind of in the cargo compartment, so I had a setup where I could look forward, and then I had a setup so I could look to the side to get the two various views of doing the aerobatics, because what happened is I had an aerobatics school, and I would get students coming kind of sporadically. I'd get a couple every week, and of course you have to do kind of a ground school, and it got kind of old, and somebody said, why don't you just put it on videotape and sell them? And I actually, it was funny, I started selling these videotapes. There was only a few out at the time. Dwayne Cole had one, and I had the other. And the funny thing was, a good friend who knew Dwayne Cole, he says, I mean, the Coles were great people, absolutely fantastic, but he said in the video, Dwayne Cole kind of pitched the top of the loop, and he said your loop was better. So I'll take that for what it's worth. But that was not my comment. I digress. But the thing is, okay, I had this VHS recorder, and the thing, amazingly, through all the aerobatics and spins and loops, actually worked quite well. And I had these VHS tapes then. And then this would be my master tape that I made the copies that I sold them to my students, and then I also sold them online, and I actually made more money selling the aerobatic ground school than I did actually teaching lessons, because back then it was, let's see, I'm trying to think, I think the airplane was like $50 an hour for decathlon, and I, as an instructor, got $15 an hour. Yes, I mean, talk about wages. Now, one interesting thing is I had a student who was a producer at the local Channel 12 in Wichita, and what he did in his spare time, this is a U-matic little tape thing here, cassette. It's a 1-inch tape as opposed to the 1/2-inch tape, and he took and he mastered my tail dragger for me. And that was done in January 21st of 1984. So he did things like he put titles on, which was like taming the tail dragger. At the time, computers were very primitive. I think I'm basically just basically past the Commodore 64 deal. So everything is very primitive, and I didn't have that ability. He had the professional studio equipment from Channel 12 in Wichita to actually do this, and he would make a master, and then I would use this to make the copy. So it was, and we worked out a deal. He did this for me for free, and I gave him instruction for free. So it worked out very well. You know, mutually beneficial. But that's how I got started, and that's how the big cameras were. Now the GoPro with the digital cards, the SD cards, are just amazing. Now, one of the things I had people ask is about camera placements, and where can you place a camera on the aircraft. Now, let's take a look here. This is kind of one of my primary, it's what I came to. This got the best results, and I will, using Final Cut Pro, which is some editing software I bought, I'll give examples of this, because this was the one that it got kind of the best view. Now, these GoPro cameras have a real problem. This is a GoPro 9 that my wife got me as a present, and they have a problem overheating. even though this would be out in the airstream, on cold days, the battery would overheat and then the thing shuts down. So I'd only get like 30 minutes. So I'm using, now I always use an external battery, or I use airplane power. And you see this little cute little cord here? The camera goes in here, and see how much smaller that is from this guy? Yeah, much smaller. Okay, he goes in here, you take the lens cap off, of course, and then I plug the power in, and the power actually goes from the aircraft in here, right there. There's a little USB power. The Great Lakes was originally certified in 1929, and I know for sure they didn't have USB power back then. And the other thing is, of course, how do you get the audio? Because you know, I want to talk about doing the aerobatics and stuff. So I got one of these little digital recorders, because unfortunately the GoPro 9, you can't tie into a microphone into the audio. Some of the earlier ones you could, but I got this little digital audio recorder, and I mean, it can hold a lot of time. And what I did was, into the radio here, the ports here, I got this little splitter, and I was kind of wondering about that, if the impedance you know, would be correct and stuff like that. But actually and half of the reviews said it didn't work, but the thing actually it did work for me, and it worked quite well, so I was very happy with that. But now let's talk about some of the positions, and like I said, I will cut away to how this guy looks, and you notice he's pointed kind of in a weird angle down there, but you see how that kind of looks, and you'll see this in the video. It picks up a lot of the wing, and it picks up the side there fairly well. So it's a good position. I start out looking straight forward, but you don't get as nice a view as when you're coming around on the hammerhead. So that's kind of what has resulted in the preferred position. Now, if I'm taking somebody up on an acrobatic flight and they want to see themselves in the video, see, like that, you barely see the side of my head, which I know is a wonderful thing, but I have a different position. But I've got several positions, and like I said, I'll show a video of what this position looks like. Runway. The north-south runway is very nice, and of course finding it can be a little bit of a trick, because it looks just like another field out there. But the one north-south, and I'm landing here to the south, is quite nice. The east-west runway, the first part is great, and the second part gets totally rough, and I think it was really hard on my shocks one time. So there I am coming in. Yep, see the end of the runway there, that little marking? And yeah, nice little bounce. Now, how wide is it? Well, that's a good question, because you know if your runway is 75 feet, 50 feet wide, 150 feet wide, and pilots normally use that width to judge how high they are when they come into the flare. But if you've got a varying width like you do typically on a grass runway, it's going to be. And then I have another position here that is on the it's mounted to a little ball there, this little guy right here, and it looks forward on the underbelly of the aircraft. And here's coming again to land on a nice concrete runway, and I'm going to come in here and get a touch and go wheel landing. And again, it's a little harder on the tires because if you got any drift at all, you're going to scrape them. And of course, you spin them up immediately from setting there at 0, where the grass slips, and it allows you to roll them on up just a little bit better, get the wheels rolling, so you don't get that. You'll hear the screech when the wheels burn a little rubber there, as it was. It's coming. It's coming. There we go. Well, that wasn't much of a screech. But anyway, that's some of the issues about grass versus hard surface runways. Grass strips can be a lot of fun, but each one almost has its unique personality. Okay, so that's kind of good if you're coming in patterns. It doesn't look too bad. So, what are the other positions? Well, I had somebody suggest, if you put it on the top of the rudder. Well, there's, I experienced flutter in flight test, and it's not a wonderful thing. And you don't want it on this part of the aerodynamic surface. That would really give you a problem. But even here, it's not good. But there's really no way to mount that without, a major modification. Now that's the whole thing. People ask about the the legality of all this, and for the most part, it seems like from what I've read, the FAA kind of looks the other way. If they want to get you, they always got careless. When I used to skydive, was you can't drop anything from an airplane that's going to hurt anybody. So there's plenty of ways to get you, and basically it says, well, if you don't cause any problems, we're not going to come after you. But so what I got here is a one mounted on the strut here, the N strut, which they call it because it looks like an N. Okay, these guys were clever 100 years ago. And it looks forward to the cockpit and gives a nice view of the people flying. And I'll show an example of that. So here I'm setting up in the loop, 120 miles per hour. It's a 3G pull, checking the wingtips, make sure they're equal there. And I like to do 2 loops in a row. You kind of float it over the top here, so it's a little more circular. You don't want to pinch it. And yeah, she's enjoying it. Pull right back into the next loop. Same thing here. Float it a little bit on the top. Now start back in with the G, and you come back. You hit 120 miles per hour at the bottom, 3G, and that's right into a nice, smooth aileron roll. Okay, drop the nose, get your airspeed back, looking for 125. My favorite aerobatic maneuver. It's just a lot of fun. You go straight up till you just about run out of airspeed, and you kick the rudder, in this case left. It's easier to do them to the left and use the opposite aileron so you don't go over on the back. Little vertical line, get your entry airspeed, pull right up into another one. Now when I taught this in a Cessna decathlon, you needed a lot more control input to keep it going off over on its back, and for the rudder input. This airplane, the Great Lakes, has just so much control authority that I was over controlling it first. I've got about 700 hours of tail dragger time teaching aerobatics in the Cessna decathlon. Mostly I taught aerobatics with some patterns and stuff. Clearing turn, and now we're setting up for the Immelman. Max Immelman, World War I ace, developed this as a way to kind of fool people. They think they're following on a loop, and all of a sudden he does a roll on the top, and they go flying on by, and then he gets on their tail, and then right into a split S, 65 knots entry airspeed, roll it on over, and because you're slow, by the time you get the roll, you're almost vertical. And okay, well, what other positions are there possibly to show? Well, let's maneuver around the airplane here. It's winter time here in Illinois. It's November, so I'm keeping the battery up. It's a little cool to fly this airplane. That's why my 310 comes into nice service. And I have this mount up here. Now there are 2 options on this mount. You can mount the camera looking backwards towards the pilots like this, which is kind of an interesting view. And one thing I want to point out is a few other obstructions you have to worry about. And this is more typical, again, of a grass field because people put these things in. And it's good to register them, I found out, because you don't want somebody putting a big tower off the end of the runway because you don't have it registered as a runway. But once you get airborne, of course, things smooth out a little bit. Now you're flying, but look at those trees over there. Yeah, that's that's an obstruction. You don't want to go off into the trees, or if you got winds from that direction, of course, you're going to get a lot of turbulence, especially if you're landing the other direction, and that's your flare point there. But and then the other thing, of course, is again finding the grass strip. And it's always good if you haven't flown into a grass strip like this to call them ahead and say, hey, what's the condition? Because especially now in Illinois, we're coming off winter, and you're going to have a lot of really soggy fields, and what grass strip that you flew in last year could be NOTAM closed because it's just kind of a mud patch now. So that's very important. And they can change over time. You can the surface can become less agreeable, and if they haven't been mowed in a while, that can also be a bit of an issue. And you can also mount the camera on this looking forward. Well, that's not very exciting, just a hangar door, but I'll show you an example of that also. Hi there, my name is Ron Rogers, and this video is titled, What's Better, Grass or Hard Surface? Now, I talked earlier on a video about how, students aren't being taught to land on grass, but there's a lot more to grass strips or concrete strips than I had discussed. Now, here's typical what you'd think is a grass strip. It's Greencastle, Iowa. It's hard surface, but it's got all the aspects that you'll have in a grass strip. You got obstructions off the end, you got trees. Look at that, right next to the touchdown point, there are all sorts of trees, so you don't want to wind out of the left. That's not good because you get hit right here. And although this is a asphalt runway of sorts, it's extremely narrow, and which makes it more difficult. And I've heard the saying, if you can fly off a Greencastle, you can fly off of anywhere. But typical flying of a tail dragger, you've got to fly it till you're in the chalks. But now let's talk about some of the aspects of grass strips that are different than concrete. So those are the options. And what I did was at Oshkosh, I went and I bought some mounting apparatus to mount on the airplane. This is from a guy. If you go to Oshkosh, he's got a booth up there, and this is just a little clamp that I got from Amazon. So I clamp it to this little loop here. This was I think this was like an extra $600. It's an old person to help you get into the airplane, kind of a hand grip. Normally it's not there, but it ended up being great for mounting camera there. So I got that and various adapters, and I bought this thing to hold the camera. They had some plastic ones, and I was kind of, I didn't want to lose the camera. They're not cheap, and also you run the effort or the risk of having somebody's car or head get hit with the camera. Most likely, because it's especially in Illinois, there's not a lot around. What really happens is you've just lost your camera. So that's the deal on this airplane. How I incorporate the audio. And one of the things I do on the audio, the Final Cut Pro, I've got a manual that big, and there's another manual that's online, and it's got more capability than I'll ever use. I know that. But there's a part in there where you can sync audio from multiple sources. Well, what I do, and what they suggest, is I do a little timing snap like that. And you're able to coordinate that on the audio on the recorder, and also with the camera. I put it out in front, and I edit that out usually. But that's the easiest way to coordinate. Then you can go through the video when you're editing it, and you can make sure that everything lines up properly, that you're not saying I'm adding power now and then no power gets added. So that would be kind of embarrassing. So anyway, that's the way it works on my Great Lakes. And unfortunately, there won't be much aerobatic flying in this aircraft for a while because it's cold. And when I go up to do aerobatics, it gets cold at altitude really quickly. So if anything, during this time of the year, I do patterns. But I have a plan. I'm 74 right now. I turn 75 next year during the summer, during August, which is good. And my thought is I'm going to do 75 loops on my 75th birthday. Reasonably consecutive as I can get them, given you know, if I start running out of altitude, I'm going to have to climb back up and continue. But I'm going to see if I can do 75. And in fact, I've got to kind of plan it out because I got to see if I got enough fuel to do 75. Anyway, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So we'll go on over now to my other hangar. This is my Great Lakes hangar, my original hangar here. It's a port-a-port. And I've got the other hangar. No, those are beers, but they were not drunk while I was flying, of course. But I've got my other hangar that is where. Oh, and this is what a GoPro looks like, as you can see that. This GoPro looks like, and I'm sure you know what a GoPro looks like anyway. This is the mirror after I take the helmet off that I can comb my hair so it doesn't look terrible. Anyway. I'm going to go and show you some of the positions on my 310 because I've done videos on that aircraft, and I'll also you know, give some examples. And here is the little leather helmets to wear while you're flying. Anyway, now to the other hangar. All right, so here I am at my big hangar, what my wife calls the toy box, because I need a bigger hangar, and it's a mess. I put some dock parts in here. I got my ham radio stuff, and you know, the way this works, no matter how big your space, it will fill up with junk, and that's kind of what I've got here. Oh, my kids are going to hate me if I don't get rid of a lot of this stuff, but they already know where they can get dumpsters. But okay, well, let's talk about where to mount a camera on the 310. Now, I've actually mounted it inside up on the glare shield so it looks out forward. Of course, there's the hangar door. That doesn't give you much. But so it looks out forward. I've done some videos with that. And this seems to be the preferred method. And you're going, oh boy, that looks surprisingly similar. Do you have two of those? And I go, no, this is the one. I take it off the other aircraft, put it here. But of course, I don't have any. Well, I do have USB power in this aircraft, but that would be a really long cord, as you can see, and getting it all the way, that would be a problem. So what I did was I made this little clever device here with using high quality Aviation Velcro, and basically I put the battery here like this and Velcro it in. You get the idea. But anyway, I got the battery there, nice and secured, and that screws in where there was a screw support. And this is the same thing here. The guy up at Oshkosh who has these makes it so you can do an inspection plate or whatever, and you can screw your screw into one of the screws there. I got from my good old trusty mechanic. I got slightly longer screws because of the length, but anyway. That seems to be a preferred method. It gives me a nice view here forward that shows, the gear coming down. It gives a pretty good view. I've got a wide enough angle shot here that it shows what that looks like.
Okay, and we are ready to go. Lake Hills traffic, Twin Cessna November 213, Mike, departing runway 08, staying in the pattern. Got to take advantage of these quiet times, brief as they may be. All right, lined up on 8. And here we go. Alrighty, we have 89% power. That's about what you get on a hot day. And away we go, 50 knots, accelerating. Little hesitation. There's my 85. I can rotate. Okay, brakes are checked. gear coming up. Okay. Bring my manifold pressure down just a little bit. Both Continental and Mike Bush said I can operate at full throttle without hurting the engines for a short time. I like it when both of those people say it's fine. All right. Come around to pattern altitude. Funny thing about the 310 is I have to remember that it flies a bigger pattern. Come on. Okay, here we are. Lane Hills traffic, Twin Cessna November 213, Mike, left downwind runway, 08 Lincoln Hills. Well, let's see how this goes. We're pretty heavy. Going to take a look at the touch and go. Depending on how far I am down the runway, we may or may not do that. It's a hot day. We're heavy because I fueled it up. This is the first flight after the wonderful massive fuel leak. Okay, gump check, gas. We're good. Boost pumps, we're on the tanks. Okay, gas. Undercarriage, we got 3 green. Mixtures and props are set as necessary. Coming around. Everything goes full forward on the go around. Okay, we got it. Lincoln Hills traffic, Twin Cessna November 213, Mike, left face runway, 08, Lincoln Hills. A finals looking clear. Airspeed's high. Let's bring her on back. And full flaps would help. That's what I usually do coming off the perch. So that's why I'm a little high and hot.
Signal traffic car 217 Delta on a mile final for runway 8 full stop.
Aha. Company. All right, yeah, I've got I'm turning into a south wind here, and I didn't quite compensate for that. So we're coming back around here. That's all right. I got plenty of time to make up for it. I'm high, but I'm on speed almost. Okay. Okay, there we go. Yeah, speed wants to drop off pretty quickly because we're heavy. Power coming in, looking good. We got 69 knots, plenty of runway. Power coming in, full power, 92, 88 coming up, 89. There's our 85, rotate. Okay, tap of the brakes, and up we come. And here it's feather and fly if we lose one.
All right. So, like I said, here is more of the assorted crap. I got to redo the oil on the boat and a few things like that, and clean it up and get it winterized. But let's go around here to another spot where I had a camera on this airplane, and I'll show you some video on what that looks like. Now, there aren't a whole lot of good spots to mount a camera. I mean, okay, we got this wing here, and it depends on which way the pattern is going on, which gives the best view. But come back here, and of course somebody said, you know, hey, the rudder would be nice looking from the top forward, and yeah, that'd be cool. And I've got some screws up there. Again, I'm a little worried about putting it up on a flight control source up there, and those screws are very small. I'm worried about, you know, if they can take the force. But here we have a tie down thing here. Now, so what I did was, and I have a battery, well actually at the time I did this I used just the internal batteries on the camera. Even though it's in the slipstream, it's still overheated, so I only got about you know, 30 minutes out of the thing. But it looks forward, but the trouble is the way I had it mounted, the camera was upside down. And as you can clearly see, the step is on the left, not the right. Other than that, everything looks good, but it's not right. And of course that can be very confusing, but in processing you can go in there and you can actually flip the image around. But when I flip the image around, it kind of reversed things, and people who are really astute go, hey, the step's on the wrong side, isn't it? And I go, yeah, it is. And there was a way to correct that. So here's, I'll show you the step back here. There's the ham radio setup, my 2 kilowatt linear that I haven't wired for 220 yet. Snowblowers. It is Illinois. But, okay, as you can see, the step's on the right side here because that's where the door is. And it's very convenient that you have a step going up to the door. And the funny thing about Cessna, this a step here, when you retract the gear, the step retracts. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, so that caused a few little problems with the gear. I mean, with the when I flipped it over, that things were on the wrong side. And supposedly there's a way to correct that. I didn't get to that point yet. I'm not sure that I'm going to use that position anymore because I really do like the position out on the wingtip there. I think that works the best. And anybody like old typewriters? I actually did a high school science fair paper on that, and I won first in the state on the charge independence of the nuclear force. But okay, I digress. Anyway, so that is the camera placement on my 310, and we're going to do a $500, it's probably a little bit more than that, hamburger run here, hopefully Saturday up to Janesville, Wisconsin, to Bessie's little diner there, which is on the airport property. So I'll fly that soon. I still got to check out the vacuum pump, because that issue, I don't have enough time on it. I was going to make a trip, a longer trip where I get a chance, but that trip's been delayed, so I don't have a good chance to really check that out. So that is still an ongoing issue, and hopefully it won't fail in the very short time period that it takes me to get up to Janesville and back. Anyway, that is camera positions. Thanks for watching.